The way you turn him into the villain, though, right away is you just go, oh, yes, there was that Steve Rogers variant. Yeah, we dealt with him. You're like, oh, they killed off old man Steve Rogers. Hail, Internet. It's Paul. It's Matt. The Dork Lords. We are here talking about Loki, Season 1, Episode 1, Glorious Purpose. We open with a version of the scene from Endgame when the team went back to 2012 to get the Tesseract from Loki, and hijinks ensue. Loki uses the Tesseract to escape. He winds up in the Gobi Desert and is quickly apprehended by the Time Variance Authority, who we get to know throughout this episode.
Yes.
We end with a Loki variant. Just for ease of nomenclature, let's say Loki 2?
Sure.
Okay. So we end with Loki 2.
What, you don't like Loki Prime? And
Loki Prime! I know. We ran into such problems with that with Counterpart. It was like, wait, which one's the Prime? Which one? Oh, shit. Okay. So, Loki 2. All right. We end with Loki 2 setting a trap for the TVA hunters, killing them, and importantly, stealing their time reset charge. And that's where we end this episode. Before we launch into further discussion, Paul, what'd you think of the first episode of Loki?
I enjoyed it, although I've watched it twice and enjoyed it better the second time.
Oh, very good. For what reason?
Well, I think I was adjusting to some things about the show. I wasn't completely buying that Loki's reactions made sense. You know, his attitude or whatever, and how he was sort of adjusting to the world around him, and some of the dialogue seemed kind of odd. Like, why do you care about this fact right now? Why are you asking that question? That doesn't make any sense to me. Well, that's good for the plot, that question.
Yeah, for the sake of the exposition, yeah, they kind of had him ask some questions that we might need to know. I got you. Essentially, Loki, after being captured by the TVA, he is recruited by Agent Mobius, Owen Wilson, to help track down Loki 2. You know, Loki 2 obviously is currently hunting, apparently several times, has lured out TVA hunters only to kill them off. And in fact, we see another example of that where they're in 1549 France, and the TVA hunters have stab marks, I'm thinking Loki daggers, and again, their reset charge has been stolen. So I think probably that's the reasoning behind these staged attacks, is perhaps to collect these reset charges that haven't been used. You know?
I hadn't thought about that, but that makes perfect sense.
And I thought about it. I watched the second time as well, and in the second viewing, I thought, oh, okay. I was wondering about the kablooey gum in France. Right?
Yes.
So this is, again, 1500s France. Loki 2 leaves a stick of kablooey gum with a kid.
Yes.
I think the kablooey gum is what actually brought the TVA. I think it was like, I need to do a thing that'll break the timeline in some way. Here, I'll give this kid some gum, and that will make the timeline go, and that'll bring the TVA to me. Maybe, I don't know. What was the gum? What was
the significance of the gum?
Yeah,
wasn't looking for any significance in it.
Okay. I just thought maybe it was a lure. I thought maybe that was the way that
he just killed somebody, and probably that person shouldn't have died. So,
did he kill somebody though? I thought he just killed the TVA.
They said stab
TVA
marks.
Folks.
Oh,
right,
the
on
stab
the
marks
TVA.
of the TVA.
I'm just thinking that's how Loki 2 brought them.
Yes. I mean, I don't know. I feel like who knows why he went there.
Knows?
You know, that seems like a gum.
I'll say this: that kid was pretty well adjusted.
Yeah.
For a kid who's just seen
a
bunch of people die.
Yeah.
Technology that is can't even comprehend the technology they're seeing. You know, Owen Wilson doesn't help any. He was like, here's a hologram of a.
Yeah.
Now, while you watch that, tell me what you saw. Like, holy crap! But I think the idea is that once they set a charge, the kid will forget all about this and
forget all about it.
I don't know. I don't know how they reset time. I would guess that He
I
doesn't
feel
have
like
the
they
kablooey-
destroy time
destroy time in what way? Like they're gonna kill the kid?
and everything that exists in that you know that reality. That's what they mean by by pairing the timeline. I think they destroy everything there.
Ah, okay. I thought they just like, I don't know, reversed time in that region or something,
Reversed
and
it?
then just fixed it somehow, like it never happened.
Right.
Okay, all right.
I was, you know, what? Then they'd have to make sure that Loki didn't appear again, I guess. And I guess you're assuming that he wouldn't. And I guess that would make sense if he wouldn't. Because I feel like they got rid of that one person there who was like, "Oh, you didn't get a ticket. Well, you're gonna die anyway. You're annoying."
I got
and
you. Okay.
what they were gonna once they just why they bother to have a trial, but they were gonna kill Loki after his trial.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's just talk about real fast. We get the little animation,
Yes.
kind of like the Jurassic Park animation that helped us
Yes.
figure out what's going on. So a lot of information packed into that thing.
Yes.
There was this multiverse war.
Yes.
The multiverse got out of hand, and basically this war was threatening to just destroy all of the realities, essentially.
Yeah.
So the Timekeepers, this trio of very mysterious folks, created the sacred timeline.
Yes.
Tried to here's one timeline. We're not having a multiverse.
Yep.
'Cause if we have a multiverse, bad things happen. So one timeline. Okay, I get that generally, and they gave examples. Hey, you can have this Nexus event. Remember, Nexus also came up in WandaVision.
Yep.
But you could have a Nexus event where somebody deliberately tries to screw with the timeline, or this was the part I was like, wow, okay. Guy comes to work late. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, you can totally unintentionally screw the timeline up without meaning to, which I was like, wow, okay. That's getting into free will versus determinism, but which, again, I think is a big subject for this show. But, okay, so that's the thing. Now, we're told, oh, yeah, there's a Loki variant.
Yes.
Loki 2.
Yeah.
And we're trying to stop Loki 2. Okay.
Yep.
So that means there's another timeline, yeah? Or what is Loki 2?
Right. That's the question that I have is one thing they talk about is whether how far the timeline is varying. Okay, and if it gets to a certain point, then it's a question of what happens then. I don't know if at that point they're like, oh well, we can't do anything anymore. Or they're like, now we really have to destroy it, or what? Who knows?
Right. Like I was thinking, for instance, we have the thing from Endgame where Steve Rogers went and lived a life.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's a big question
and
that a number of people have actually. Is that I certainly assumed, and I think other people did as well, is that happened on a different timeline. And I wonder if what happened was they're like, well, we're not going to bother with that timeline.
Right. Maybe there's a sense of it's not just that there's one timeline, but there are multiple timelines. But if it's seen that the branches aren't going to intersect with the sacred timeline, they're like, fine, we'll let that go. And it maybe like you can be a safe timeline as long as you don't go whoop and then veer across and intersect.
I mean, because one possibility might be like, okay, we're trying to cull as many as we can, but some we can't, and oh well.
Right.
Some people were disappointed, and I was among them. That was, I think, would have been a great opportunity to say, oh, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that was a timeline. That's a variant, and all that stuff that happened there where they go back in time and change things. That's not our timeline. That's their timeline.
Apparently, it's not a thing because they did show Agent Coulson.
They did so, and they didn't mention anything at all.
Yep.
Hey, the show's not over yet, but they probably won't.
Yeah, so that is to me, a big question is, like for instance, if you thought of the sacred timeline as literally one timeline, and they're making sure there's only one line,
right?
Then that means that Loki 2 is Loki, but maybe from the future or something, which I don't think is the case. In fact,
what I assumed was like another time that something changed, that they weren't able to stop it. So maybe he escaped in the past, or Loki 2 escaped in the past, and and then started doing like, oh, we can't capture him. We can't, Although, I think it's entirely possible that Loki's a she in this instance.
Yeah, the idea is that it's Lady Loki. We've seen casting, and on his rest sheet, it does say gender fluid.
Yes.
Just kind of pointing out the fact that, so assuming that it is Lady Loki, that means it's a completely different character, probably, right? Like, it's not Loki from the same Loki, just from a different time. It's a different version of Loki, a different origin story, and that Loki is playing out in some kind of parallel timeline.
Right.
Okay, anyway.
If you were looked at the Star Trek show, okay, and, they go back in time, and, there are certain things that are different, like, for some reason, the Khan in The Wrath of Khan, the movie, looks different than The Wrath of Khan in the other one. Doesn't look like Ricardo Montalbani. Looks entirely different. Well, it's still Khan,
Right.
So,
right.
In this case, Loki is a woman, and it's still Loki.
So this show is reminiscent of a few different works.
Yes.
I mean, think of I wasn't a big fan of the movie, but the Adjustment Bureau, kind of a similar kind of idea, perhaps.
Oh, sure.
But I think maybe the best analog for me is Men in Black.
Sure.
I feel like you've got the wise, experienced agent, the new recruit.
Yeah.
And they belong to an impossibly huge bureaucracy that's trying to save the universe, but still has the trappings of that like cubicle office thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Even the time reset charges kind of remind me of the neuralizers.
Sure.
It's like, we have to erase what just happened, so this is how we do it.
That
anyway.
explains why your thinking was much more benign than I think it is.
Okay. Good point. We see that Loki was D.B. Cooper.
Right.
And that he did it because he lost a bet to Thor.
Yeah.
And so that was as a result of losing, he had to go hijack a plane. I guess. It's kind of, I thought that might be somehow more integral to the plot, but it's kind of funny. They just kind of threw it in there as like hey, this has got a mischief. Being mischievous. This relationship between Mobius and Loki, obviously very important. And they have some pretty meaningful conversation. Mobius is trying to get Loki to the point where he admits that he doesn't enjoy killing people. That he is not a terrible person. And he does. He finally gets to the point where he's like, yeah, no, I don't enjoy killing people. I do it because I'm worried about my own power, and I feel like I have to put out this front. And I don't know. How did you...
Worried about his own power? I didn't get that.
You didn't get that? What did you get as the...
To me, what he was saying was he wants to control everything, and he's afraid that he doesn't have the power, I think, to do it. And so he's trying to make it seem like he's got more power than he does.
Right. That's what I was attempting to say.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All right. I thought you were saying, I've got
was
all this power, I'm afraid of it.
Yeah, no, that he's trying to show that he's got it without having it, yeah. Tom Hiddleston does a great job registering his face when he's watching. He sees his, the film strip of his life. This is your life.
Yeah.
He sees the past, and then he, through mischievous means, gets to see his future.
Yes.
And, he's just devastated by the death of his mom.
Yes.
Although we're also told it was like she has to die in the sacred timeline.
Yeah.
She has to, like her death apparently in that moment is crucial to the sacred timeline. And Mobius mentions it.
Yeah.
That to me, that's like, I just wonder if that's a plot point later where
really, why? That he would try to save her?
Maybe. Like he obviously is hugely affected by it, and it might put him against an organization that insists that she has to die. I don't know. Maybe. I just throwing that out there. I don't know. It was just an interesting thing. That's a huge moment to him.
Yeah, it's a huge moment to him. I mean, okay, I'd be surprised if that was it.
If I'm trying to think of a way in which he gets at odds at all with the TV.
Right. I feel like the second time he says he has glorious purpose is the reason why he's decided, because I don't completely buy his confession of what his intentions are. I think he's just like Mobius suggested that he tries to seduce someone in order so he can betray them later. I think is what he was doing there. And And so I think he does have a sort of plan, but I think it might be a similar thing to sort of figure out how everything works so that he can turn that to his advantage.
Definitely, definitely.
You know, which may be just like 2 steps behind the Loki 2.
That brings up a good point, too, just about generally how the TVA works. This idea of the sacred timeline, that there are these 3 timekeepers that apparently no one talks to, which makes me wonder, like,
yeah, if they exist.
If they exist, or, you know, anymore. Kind of reminds me of that short story, that Robert Heinlein short story, Universe, where many aeons ago, a culture set off on a spaceship, but then over time, the builders died. The descendants of the survivors forgot that they were even on a ship, and they just thought that that's their world. That's the universe, and they're actually in a ship that they don't know how to control. But yeah, I think there is something about that. Oh yeah, the timekeepers. It's what the timekeepers want. We haven't asked them lately, but I'm sure that's what they want. That could be come into play somewhere in here.
Sure.
But it brings up this idea that they are enforcing this sacred timeline to the point that, as I mentioned, you could unintentionally go to work late and they're going to come and kill you, probably. I don't know, like remove you somehow from the timeline. Or, I mean, I guess they moved it in the cartoon character. They moved him back, but then they put him on trial.
Right.
Anyway, point being, it does get this idea of like, do we have free will or not? And Loki, the fact that Loki even has this moment, it's a comedic beat, but I think it's relevant, where he wonders if he's a robot.
Right.
You know, it's like, no robotic beings are allowed in here. He's like, am I a robot? I hope not. But it brings up the idea of like, do you have a soul? Do you have choice? And it seems like the TVA is trying to narrow the window of choices to make a safer universe, essentially. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's going to play at all in a...
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, one of the things from the comics that exists are, if we bring in the concept of Nexus beings again, who are people who, at least as defined in the comics, are people who exist in all timelines, and therefore they're especially powerful.
Like
and right, and so therefore maybe they're the people who can change things, and so. You know, if you go for a position of we don't know who those beings are until they go and change something, then you can say, okay, what's going on there? Why is that happening? Did you do this intentionally, or were you affected by someone who was it's like, oh, I just did something different because that person did. You know, not that you'd know it necessarily, but you know, you might be able to figure out like, oh, we got the wrong guy or whatever. I think that's just one of those simple examples, like, you know, let you a choice that you can understand, like in sliding doors or something.
Right.
But if everybody is at that danger, then it's like good luck trying to control everything, because you know you got millions of people that could make different decisions every time. Why would they necessarily always do the thing that they're supposed to do? So I think it's probably only a minority of people who have that ability to do something different. Otherwise, that's sort of untenable.
One of the motivations I think Mobius has, obviously he's trying to recruit Loki to help him.
Yes.
But I think also he's asking questions of Loki's motivations
right.
to understand Loki too, is what I'm thinking.
Perhaps I felt like it was to say, are you as bad as her? Or
but in other words, like he asked, like, what is it you want most?
Right.
He's like, I want to rule Earth.
Right.
And so maybe
and the 9 realms, and so it's like, oh,
right.
Okay, that's manageable.
Yeah,
like say, and the TVA. What? Oh, quick, get him in here, destroy him.
Hit him with the paint stick.
Yeah.
I like that they don't have missile weapons. Apparently, they can. You have to run up to somebody.
Weapons.
Yeah, they have to hit them with a stick.
Every combat, yeah.
At this end thing where Loki 2 kills folks and takes a reset charge in Oklahoma.
Yes.
I looked it up just to see if there was any kind of relevant dates around that time, like historical things that happened.
Okay.
And there is a historical thing for Oklahoma anyway that happens. So the date given is 1858, and I think it's pronounced Salina, Oklahoma, just because I lived in Kansas and there's a Salina, Kansas.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't know if it's Salina or Salina, but I'm going to go with Salina. 1858, Salina, Oklahoma. 1859, oil apparently was first discovered in Salina, Oklahoma.
Uh-huh.
And the very fact that what this Loki 2 did is went a year earlier than the oil was discovered and then
Yes.
used oil to kill the TVA folks.
Yes.
What that suggests to me is, and maybe it's obvious, but I think we get confirmation that this Loki 2 understands Earth's history, like uses it as a weapon practically. Like I'll lure them to this oil field
Sure.
where I can kill them, but I have to go a year earlier than oil was discovered, or else it's going to be a bunch of wells and it's going to be annoying. So I'm going to go to 1858. So they have some knowledge of history. They also have the ability to accurately move through time and space. To me, meaning I feel like Loki 2 maybe has TVA tech as well, perhaps.
Oh.
The fact that Loki 2 is stealing these charges also means Loki 2 is very familiar with TVA protocols, with TVA gear.
Okay.
So I feel like either this Loki was previously a prisoner or somehow was associated with the TVA or something. I feel like there might be another part of this story that Mobius hasn't said yet.
Oh, sure.
You know,
I mean,
to
of
be
course.
like, oh, here's the extra backstory to Loki 2. Also, I think it's just they put the stuff on Earth because, you know, the viewership lives on Earth. But it's just interesting that we're talking a universe-wide timeline,
Probably.
and yet the two events that they show us are both on Earth.
Sure.
They're both France and Oklahoma.
Yes.
And it just suggests that Loki 2 has some kind of an Earth bias somehow. I don't know, but I don't know. It's interesting that it's not like, oh, it was on Alpha 7, Centauri 13.
That's true that's interesting that it's not that. I mean, I suspect that, you know, it's like showing our history in different lights is more interesting than creating a whole different history that the viewer is going to be less attached to.
I got you. It just makes me wonder then, wait, are we talking about a universal problem or are we talking about something that affects Earth? I feel like it's universal.
I mean, it's
but-
hard for me to imagine this sort of, you know, I mean, creating alternate universes that only affect planets. I
Right.
understand how that could
Seems
be.
weird.
So,
Yeah, I
you know,
agree.
it's one of those things where it's like, that seems crazy that, you know, any event that might be different might cause a whole other universe to be created. And yet that's what the, you know, what the theory is, as I understand it.
I think we can make an assumption, you know, so the Sacred Timeline is an attempt to stop another multiverse war.
Yes.
And the fact that, you know, the next Doctor Strange movie is called The Multiverse of Madness.
Yes.
Suggests that perhaps this plan fails somewhere in the near future, that there is a multiverse.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh,
yeah.
crap.
Oh,
You know, so
definitely.
whether that happens in this season
I mean,
or
I
not.
definitely, a lot of people feel that, and I think it's definitely has something to do with that. I feel like Kevin Feige might have said that this, you know, more than WandaVision, has a lot to do with what's coming.
I think my favorite little throwaway line was from one of the cubicle lackey guy when he's got the Tesseract. And they're taking a Tesseract from Loki, and Loki's like, "Be careful with that." I think he says something like, "What is it?" "It's a Tesseract."
Yes.
And you just hear him out of the corner of your ear as they're leading Loki away. You hear the guy go, "That sounds dumb."
Yes. Yes.
Sounds dumb.
Yeah.
This is funny.
I was very happy to see
Oh.
that character, who is played by Eugene Cordero, who I enjoyed in The Good Place.
Plus, he has this drawer filled with
Yes.
Infinity
Yeah,
Stones.
that people use as
They use them as
paperweights.
paperweights.
Yes.
Although I did think, I think that's just the extent of that they're just showing that, hey, here in the TVA, it's kind of exists out of time and space, so these things are useless, and we use them as paperweights here. But also that we've collected them somehow throughout different alternate timelines. But it could also potentially be a plot point where...
I agree with that, because what he says is, I think for the most part, or something, that...
Yeah, he says some people, yeah. But also note that I believe Loki picks up like a time stone, and he's like looking at it, and then he appears to put it back. But this is the guy that is good at stealing stuff. Potentially, he pocketed a time stone, and then when he gets out of the TVA, it becomes useful again. I don't know. Maybe in other words, like what's
That's possible.
Just a thought.
But circling back to what we were talking about, though, I mean, we don't know exactly. It's like, while it's interesting, all this different multiverse stuff, obviously the implication of how the Fantastic Four and the X-Men appear into the Marvel Universe will probably be some sort of multiverse thing.
Yeah.
One way is that the number of comics have dealt with this whole thing is at some point there's some unification going on. So, there might have to be some sort of, okay, and we've got another war on our hands, but now we have to somehow combine them. And so, yeah, that's the potential ramifications of, what we're seeing right now.
So what do we think is Loki 2's motivation? Loki 2 has a glorious purpose as well, it seems like, and is being very specific, targeting TVA, collecting these charges.
Right.
What is the ultimate goal?
I had assumed that it was nothing more, and of course it could be something more, but I had assumed it was nothing more than either the destruction or, taking command of it.
Okay, I was thinking there might be a thing of, again, I'm confused as to what alternate timelines there are.
I'm hesitant to speculate on anything grander without evidence.
Yeah. Right. But the idea that maybe this variant is trying to become the sacred Loki. In other words, like, hey, why do I have to be the variant Loki? Yeah, that's just because you guys say I am.
Why does that matter?
Because then they're on the timeline that is the good one. Although I guess technically in the sacred timeline, Loki does get killed by Thanos. But,
yeah.
So maybe that's
she's fighting to be the Thanos Loki that gets killed.
Yeah.
I don't think. I'd be surprised if that was it. What I would wonder if what she's trying to do is destroy or decide a different timeline would be sacred. So, I'm going to decide that something different should be what is, and everything else.
One where my mom doesn't die, and I don't get killed violently by Thanos, maybe. It is interesting that Thanos' snap and then the unsnap are all part of the sacred timeline. I find that interesting. that wasn't a variant somehow. That was just like, no, that's, of course. Like,
yes.
Half the universe got destroyed, and then it came back 5 years later.
Yes.
That's in it.
Yep.
And because, Loki brings up, hey, it was the Avengers. They did all the time stuff.
Right.
And they're like, no, that was fine.
Right. Yeah.
What you did. No,
right. Yeah. But that does beg the question of exactly what happened with Steve Rogers then.
Right. It does.
It's
Boy,
like,
they should answer that question sometime. Damn it.
Yeah.
It just keeps coming around in all these series. Like, wait, what? Falcon and Winter Soldier, like, wait, he's gone? What does that mean? Is he on the moon? Where the hell is he?
Did he go back to his own timeline, or?
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a timeline to go to?
Or was he in the timeline at that time and he was just like, like, oh, honey, look in the papers about the event. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. Okay, I want to know.
Here's a way you could do the heel turn for the TVA. Right now, they're kind of like disturbingly powerful, but they're also, just kind of casual about it. And so you're not sure if they're, at the moment, they feel like the good guys, kind of, but they could easily become the bad guys. If you wanted to turn them into the bad guys.
You're really attached to your benevolent action.
I am. At the moment, I feel like that's what, but yeah.
People go, what happened? They set bombs when they leave, okay? It's supposed to be destroying a timeline.
We didn't see the bomb go off. That's the thing. I don't know. Like, in other words,
they're resetting the timeline. How do you think they're doing that?
Well, I'm saying you zoop, time back or something. I don't know.
See,
like, in other words, you're right. If they set a bomb and killed off the people in the Gobi Desert, that's terrible.
Yeah.
We didn't see them do that. That's the thing.
You didn't see what happened after the bomb went off.
Correct. And we didn't know it was a bomb, per se.
Right.
It filled up with the purple stuff, and then they left. And it wasn't like kabloom. It was like something was coming out, but it looked like that's maybe a time change is happening. I don't know. I'm just saying.
So they're changing time? I think it's more likely that they're destroying it. That's what
They're
they
just
cull.
blowing-
They
You saw
cull
stuff? Boom.
things. You saw
yeah.
these
I hear
little
you.
things, and then they cull them. These little time
So
ones that
that
go
could-
off.
That could very well be exactly what's
So
happening.
they're
and
bad.
then so they'd be bad. But if you wanted to have them be like, oh, they're
It's like they've
they're
got
bad.
the purpose
Is-
of those is to keep everything from going crazy and
Yeah.
keeping a war. So that's their motivation
you-
to doing things that are you can define as
The
bad.
way you turn them into the villain, though, right away is you just go, oh, yes, there was that Steve Rogers variant. Yeah, we dealt with him. You're like, oh, they killed off old man Steve Rogers. Like if they killed off old man Steve Rogers, you're like, all right, now you guys have to be stopped.
You know, the implication is that there's something else that happens. Someone else suggested, I watched, that if it breaks off too far, maybe it's collapsing on itself, but then you could just let it do that. So I think it's more likely that it's another timeline, and that sometimes they can't stop them, so they don't destroy them, is what I'm guessing.
Okay.
But if you can stop a lot of them, then maybe you have less potential.
Right, less
for-
branches to come back on you
Yeah,
and
yeah.
screw with stuff. I looked at the end credit stuff mainly because in Falcon and Winter Soldier there was some really important little Easter eggs
Right.
in the end credits.
Yeah, that's when they
So-
show the whole gender fluid thing.
They do. They show like apocalyptic event, New York, and all those different things. But one thing they showed that I spent way too much time looking at, and I went down a rabbit hole.
Uh-oh.
And it's probably not important at all. But before I jettisoned it, I suddenly realized, oh wait, there's a connection. So there's a shot where they have this big dictionary open,
Yes.
and I was like zoom in, and there was only one dictionary term that I could make out.
Yes.
And so, again, I was about to be like, who cares? But they're like, oh wait. So it's the term lacrima Christi.
Okay.
I didn't know what that was. I
Me
had to look
neither.
it up.
Okay, good. I'm
All
glad
right.
I'm not alone.
Lacrima Christi is the term for a particular wine that is made from grapes that grow in only one place.
Yeah.
And that one place
Asgard.
is Asgard. Okay. The slopes of Mount Vesuvius.
Oh, okay.
Now, in the trailer,
Yes.
we've seen Loki in what very much looks like Pompeii
Yes.
as Vesuvius explodes
Yes.
in the background.
Yes.
It's highly coincidental that this word would be in there. The backstory to the Lacrima Christi terminology is that supposedly this wine is very special because it's where Christ wept about the fall of Lucifer.
Okay.
And so his tears created the grapes that made this very special wine in this
Okay.
one particular place. So I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if, and also we had this imagery in this episode
Yes.
with, we're at the church.
Yes.
Oh, it's the devil.
Yes.
But, we had horns, and is that just Loki with a horn helmet maybe? Or,
Yes.
and so I'm just wondering if maybe this Vesuvius moment that we know is coming somewhere in here is
Yes.
going to be perhaps like a confrontation between our two Lokis.
Oh.
Like almost like these two gods are confronting each other on the slopes of Mount Vesuvius.
Okay.
Maybe that even's what causes the explosion. I don't know. But just I don't know where the wine fits in exactly. But
Okay.
it's just odd that
is odd.
it has this interesting backstory. It's very specific to Mount Vesuvius,
Sure.
and we know Mount Vesuvius is in this show.
Yes.
What does that mean? So if they're sipping a wine, and they're like, "What wine is that?" and somebody goes, "Oh, this is a Lacrima Christi," you're like, "Oh, the Dork Lords, they knew it was coming." All right, anyway. So anyway, just who
Okay.
knows? Who knows what that means? Another thing they've got are these time twisters. It kind of remind me of the Time Turner from Harry Potter.
Oh,
But,
okay.
it's a cool effect when they hit Loki, and then he's feeling the pain in real time, but he has to feel it for 16 times longer than he would otherwise, because they, it's like a torture device, really.
Yeah.
Also, I noticed that the actress that plays that character, I think it's Hunter B-15,
Yes.
was also on Lovecraft
Yes.
Country.
Yes.
And we've got Jonathan Majors, who was in Lovecraft Country, is scheduled to be playing Kang the Conqueror.
Ah,
Probably not in this show,
no.
but
Well, probably.
it's related to the TVA.
Yeah.
The implication is that Kang is one of those 3 timekeepers.
Oh, okay.
And anyway, but who knows?
Yes, who knows?
That's theoretical. But
Sure.
just saying, it's interesting that the cast of Lovecraft Country
Yes.
has been brought aboard. I think successfully.
That is
so
interesting. Sure.
to the
Yeah, they
Marvel
did it.
universe. I like the look of the TVA. I like the old school analog stuff that goes on, and then the fact that that giant inner world looks like the inner workings of a clock almost, right? It has like these little
That's interesting.
gears and wheel looking things.
Sure.
It's a cool series. There's a lot still to learn.
Yeah.
And it is a fascinating new take in the MCU, right?
Yes.
They've really thrown a curveball into
Yes.
the MCU, and I think to good effect so far. So I'm looking forward to see where it goes.
Yeah, me too.
So all right, well, cool. We'll be back for episode 2. Thank you as always, Paul.
You're
Appreciate
welcome,
it, good sir.
Matt.
And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.